What if the entire trajectory of your life isn't determined by what you chase, but by what you choose to build in silence? What if all the noise, the applause, the attention, the craving for recognition has been a distraction, not a direction? While the world teaches you to prove yourself to others, the rare few learn to prove themselves to themselves. And in that sacred solitude, the real transformation begins. Because the man who turns inward, who trains his thoughts, who refines his focus, he doesn't just grow, he becomes unstoppable. There's a reason your breakthrough hasn't come through shouting, hasn't arrived through trying to be louder than the crowd. It's because real power is forged in stillness, in those quiet hours where no one is watching. In the early mornings when your only applause is the sound of your breath steadying before the battle. In the late nights where the rest of the world sleeps sand you grind. Not for likes, not for praise, but because you made a vow to yourself, and you intend to keep it. You were not born to chase. You were born to lead yourself first, always. Yet many wander, eyes fixed on others' timelines, hearts wired to strangers' approval. They trade their power for attention. They scatter their energy on 1,000 pursuits, hoping something sticks, hoping something sparks. But the fire you're looking for is not out there. It's in the mirror. It's in the still, honest confrontation with your own potential. It's in the decision to say, I'm done explaining, I'm done waiting, I'm done checking who's ahead, I'm building my own damn path. Because when you finally focus on you, you reclaim your edge. You don't dilute it, you sharpen it, you forge it through practice, through presence, through discipline. Focus isn't some luxury reserved for the privileged. It's a weapon. And in a world of noise, the man who holds focus wields power. The man who guards his attention like gold, who builds a wall around his time, who filters every whisper through the lens of purpose, he becomes a force. But that focus is fragile, and the world, oh, it knows it. The world will bait you with distractions dressed as opportunities. It will dangle shiny things in front of your eyes and dare you to look away from your craft. And the moment you do, you fracture. Not all at once, but slowly, silently. You don't lose your vision overnight. You misplace I-tone, unchecked comparison, one wasted scroll, one meaningless argument at a time. Until you wake up wondering why your spirit feels so tired and your fire burns so low. The truth is this: your attention is your lifeline. It is the steering wheel of your destiny. If you don't drive it, someone else will. And they won't take you anywhere worth going. That's why you've got to own your progress. You've got to lock in on your own rhythm. You've got to become obsessed not with impressing others, but with improving yourself. Not with proving you're better, but with becoming your best. And that shift, that's when life changes. Because energy grows where attention flows. And when you pour all of that energy into yourself, not selfishly, but intentional, you evolve. Your mindset sharpens. Your values solidify. Your habits align. Suddenly, you're not reacting to life, you're directing it. You're not hoping for momentum, you're creating it. And the people around you, they start to notice. Not because you told them, but because power like yours doesn't need permission to be seen. That's when you start building like a craftsman day by day, moment by moment, in silence with purpose. You turn off the noise, you shut out the comparison, you pick up your tools and you get to work. Because you understand now masterpieces aren't made under the spotlight. They're carved in the dark. They're shaped in the trenches. They're formed in the fire. And the man who keeps building when no one's watching becomes the man everyone watches once the work is done. So ask yourself, have you been chasing or becoming? Have you been performing for crowds who don't know your story? Or have you been sculpting a future that only your soul understands? You don't need more followers. You need more focus. You don't need to go viral. You need to go inward. You need to silence the chaos and listen to the small, still voice that's been whispering this entire time. You are meant for more, but not the kind of more they sell you. Not the kind that sparkles under stage lights. The kind of more that's built on integrity, on inner alignment, on day after day of doing the right thing, even when no one claps. Because your soul doesn't need applause, it needs direction, it needs order. And it needs you to stop abandoning it every time a new distraction walks by. You've got to decide now. Are you a spectator of your own life? Or are you the architect? Are you the man waiting for an opportunity to prove himself? Or are you the man who already knows what he's made of and acts like it? This is the line. This is the threshold. Once you step over it, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly hands you success, but because you've stopped handing the world your power. The moment you stop dividing your focus among everyone else's highlight reel and turn it all toward your own growth, that's the moment you begin to win. Quietly, steadily, unapologetically. And when you do, you don't become impressive. You become undeniable. The world will always cheer for the man who starts strong, the one who makes the loud entrance, who sets goals with fire in his eyes and declarations on his lips. But the world forgets just as quickly. Because the truth is, it's not how loudly you begin, it's how quietly you continue. The man who rises is not the one who burns hot for a moment. It's the one who learns to keep walking when the spark fades, when motivation withers, when no one is watching. That man, he doesn't just finish. He becomes something rare, something permanent. Consistency, that's the real power. That's the edge that cuts through excuses, outlasts doubt, and moves mountains while others sleep. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they lack repetition. They want results, but they resist routine. They worship inspiration like it's a god, hoping it descends each morning like dew. But inspiration is fleeting. It vanishes with moods, with seasons, with setbacks. Structure is what remains. The man who masters his days, who repeats his rhythm, who does it again and again and again, he becomes unstoppable. Not because he moves faster, but because he never stops. We've been sold the lie that greatness is born in moments, in sudden breakthroughs, in flashes of genius. But the man who's lived long enough, who's fought long enough, who's built in silence, he knows better. He knows that greatness lives in the mundane, in the repetition, in the boring. He knows that showing up on the hard days matters more than winning on the good ones. He knows that skipping the gym when you're tired isn't just a missed workout, it's a message to your identity. It's a vote against who you said you were becoming. You are not your dreams. You are your habits. You don't rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your systems. And that's where most men go wrong. They dream in castles and build with paper. They declare bold visions, then flinch at resistance. They start with conviction, then cave to comfort. They build momentum, then sabotage it with compromise. They quit when it gets quiet. They stop when the applause ends. But if your discipline dies when the noise fades, it was never discipline. It was performance. The man who wins, he doesn't negotiate with his principles. He doesn't ask his feelings for permission. He treats effort as non-negotiable. He follows the schedule, not the mood. Because he understands feelings are fickle, but rituals are anchors. Discipline is the language the future respects, and your life will not reward your bursts of effort. It will reward your daily bricks. Every morning you rise, every task you complete, every promise you keep to yourself, that's a brick, that's a vow, that's you building something no storm can steal. Picture a blacksmith. He doesn't strike the iron once and expect it to bend. He hits it again and again, with rhythm, with heat, with patience. Not because the metal looks different after the first strike, but because he knows transformation comes with repetition. So must you strike your habits, your thoughts, your time, until they take the shape of the life you were meant to lead. No fanfare, no spotlight. Just you, your craft, and your relentless consistency. You don't need 100 goals. You need one kept promise. You don't need a better plan. You need deeper commitment. You don't need another vision board. You need to wake up and move no matter how you feel. Because mastery doesn't show up in passion. It shows up in practice, in devotion, in discipline under pressure, in keeping the line firm when life begs you to break it. That's why you must treat every repetition like a prophecy. Not just something you do, but something you become. You lay that brick like it matters because it does. One skipped day won't ruin you. But one excuse repeated becomes a pattern. A pattern becomes a personality. And before long, you become the man who used to be on fire. The one who had potential, who showed promise, but disappeared somewhere between Monday's excitement and Thursday's excuses. Don't be that man. Be the man who shows up anyway. Be the man who gets up when it's cold, when it's quiet, when it's inconvenient. Be the man who walks forward when no one claps, when no one cares, when the results are still miles away. That's where real transformation happens, not in the celebration, but in the silence, in the friction, in the resistance you push through when the easy way out is whispering your name. You want a secret? Here it is. Every act of consistency carves your character. Every day you show up, you're proving to yourself that you can be trusted. And that trust? That's the foundation for confidence. That's the foundation for power. You don't need more motivation. You need more integrity. More days where your actions align with your intentions. More mornings where your word means more than your mood. More weeks where your grind is louder than your excuses. And yes, it's going to be boring, it's going to feel slow, it's going to be thankless, but that's the price of permanence, that's the cost of legacy. The man who becomes a monument didn't sprint to the summit climbed. 1 foot at a time, 1 breath at a time, 1 choice at a time. The fortress that stands through the storm is the one built in stillness. So build in stillness. Build like no one is watching, because for a while no one will be. But that's where the edge is forged. That's where the next version of you is born. Repetition is not punishment. It is preparation. It is precision. It is prophecy in progress. So ask yourself, are your habits aligned with the life you say you want? Are your actions echoing the identity you claim to hold? Or are you still seduced by the thrill of starting, but allergic to the weight of consistency? Every day is a vote. Every choice a chisel. Every action a declaration of who you are and who you're becoming. Don't let your fire be a flare. Let it be a furnace. Let it burn through fatigue. Let it melt your distractions. Let it power you through the days when nothing makes sense, because those are the days that define you. Not the days you win, but the days you don't quit. Because when the dust settles and the noise fades and the spotlight moves on, one question will remain. Did you finish what you started? And the man who can say yes, not because it was easy, not because he felt like it, but because he chose to, he becomes a monument. He becomes proof. And in a world full of starters, he becomes the rarest of all things, a finisher. But even the most consistent man faces a battle no one sees. Even the one who builds daily, who strikes the hammer without applause, hears the whispers, not from outside, but from within. That inner voice, the one that questions, the one that doubts, the one that doesn't shout but slips in like a friend, dressed in your own tone, speaking in familiar language, echoing back every failure you've ever known and calling it truth. That voice, it's not harmless. It's a saboteur, a traitor that lives inside your own walls. And if you do not confront it, if you do not master it, it will sabotage everything you're building. You can win the battle in the world and still lose the war in your mind, because the mind is the throne. And whatever rules there, fear or faith, regret or resolve, doubt or discipline, will rule the rest of your life. It doesn't matter how many people believe in you if your own mind is against you. You could be walking into opportunity with the wind at your back, but if that voice whispers, "You're not ready," you'll retreat. Not because it's true, but because you believed it. So here's the truth. Your greatest enemy doesn't wear a face. It wears a mask made of memory. It plays back your lowest moments, not to remind you, but to convince you. It pretends to protect, but it only paralyzes. Don't try again, it says. Remember what happened last time? And just like that, you freeze, you delay, you sit back down. Not because the world stopped you, but because you stopped you. You need to silence that voice, not by arguing with it, not by entertaining its doubts, but by speaking louder, speaking with clarity, speaking truth. Speak like a man who commands his own soul. Declare your values, declare your mission, declare your worth. Speak not what you feel in your fear, but what you know in your spirit, and speak it every day, loudly, unapologetically, until that inner critic is drowned out by the voice of the man you were born to become. This is not about flattery. This is not about pretending. This is about coaching yourself like a champion, about shifting your inner dialogue from punishment to power, from self-sabotage to self-command. Every time you catch yourself replaying the old story, interrupt it, replace it, write a new line. You must flood your mind with truth until it becomes louder than the lie. Because your thoughts, they are not passengers. They are pilots. They steer your emotions. They drive your behavior. And if your thoughts are poisoned, your progress is too. So audit your inner dialogue. Not once, every day. Ask, is this voice lifting me, or is it limiting me? Is it speaking to my past, or is it calling me to my future? Is it protecting an old identity, or inviting a new one? And when you find those old lines, the ones that say, I'm not enough, I always quit, I'll never be like them, you don't tolerate them, you don't accommodate them, you replace them. One belief at a time, one declaration at a time, one truth at a time. Because what you speak consistently becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes who you are. Start speaking like the man you're becoming. Speak like a general before battle, with precision, with fire, with clarity, and when fear whispers, let faith answer. When doubt leans in, let discipline speak up. When the voice says, sit down, you say, watch me rise. Because until you train that voice, until you take ownership of your internal environment, every victory will be temporary. Every breakthrough will be sabotaged, and your highest potential will remain a prisoner inside your own unchallenged thoughts. You do not need to be perfect to speak truth. You do not need a crown to talk like a king. You speak not because you've arrived, but because you've decided to go. And that decision, repeated daily, becomes power. That voice, once a whisper, becomes a war cry. That identity, once borrowed, becomes forged. But don't stop there. Don't just fix your thoughts, fortify them, sharpen them like a sword, hone them like a craftsman, speak them out loud, write them down, reflect on them before the world gets loud. Because if you don't start your day with truth, the world will fill it with lies. You'll be told who you are, what you can't do, where you belong. And if you haven't anchored yourself first, you'll drift. You'll adopt beliefs that don't serve you. You'll carry weights that aren't yours. So begin each day by claiming your mind. Before you check the news, before you check your phone, check your thoughts, direct them. Don't let them wander aimlessly. Don't let them run scripts from 10 years ago. Reprogram them, reframe them, and repeat that process until truth becomes the default. You must understand this. Identity is not inherited. It's not downloaded from your childhood. It is forged through repetition, through effort, through self-leadership. And every time you choose discipline over comfort, every time you speak power over fear, every time you refuse to be a victim to your old thoughts, you cast a vote for who you're becoming. So be vigilant, be relentless, be ruthless about guarding your mind. Because until your mindset becomes a fortress, you will fight every battle twice, once in the world and once in your own head. And the first battle, that's the one most men lose. Not because they weren't strong enough, but because they weren't focused enough, trained enough, present enough to see it for what it was. Not a signal to stop, but a summons to rise. When your thoughts align, your life follows. When your inner voice becomes a weapon, not a weakness, you move through resistance with grace. You stop hesitating. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop living small because of stories that were never yours to begin with. You walk in truth. You speak with certainty. You lead your life with conviction. Because you no longer listen to the critic, you listen to the commander. And that voice, the one that stands tall when storms come, the one that speaks clarity in the fog, the one that fuels your fire when your body feels weak, that voice is you, the real you, the awakened you. The version that doesn't wait to be chosen, doesn't shrink to be accepted, and doesn't need approval to act. That voice is your power. Build it, use it, and let it lead you. Because once your inner voice is sharpened into a weapon of truth, the next line you must draw is not on the outside, it's at your feet. It's the line called standard. The level below which you will never again allow yourself to fall. The standard is the floor you stand on when the world tries to drag you back into comfort, mediocrity, and compromise. And until that floor is firm, until it is defined and enforced, your progress will remain fragile. You can have ambition in your heart, fire in your gut, vision in your mind, but if your standards are low, your life will betray all three. Most men don't need more inspiration. They need a stronger line in the sand, a declaration that says, this is who I am now, this is what I accept. And anything below this, no matter how tempting, no matter how familiar, no longer belongs in my life. Because while dreams lift your eyes to the sky, only standards train your feet to walk the path that gets you there. Dreams excite you, standards shape you, and the man who wants to build high must first dig deep. There is no skyscraper without a subterranean foundation. And there is no greatness without non-negotiables. So what is a standard? It's not a wish. It's not a resolution you write on the 1st of January and forget by February. It's not something you say when the mood is high and abandon when life presses low. A standard is a law, one you live by whether the lights are on or off, whether the room is full or empty, whether the path is smooth or brutal. A standard is what you do when no one is watching. It is the part of you that stands up when everything else wants to sit down. And here's the truth, the world will always test your line. It will tempt you to compromise, to settle, to soften your edge so others feel more comfortable. It will whisper, just this once, and you must respond, not anymore. Because what you tolerate today becomes your normal tomorrow, and what becomes normal becomes identity. And identity becomes destiny. This is where most men get stuck, not because they lack desire, but because they've allowed their standards to be situational, conditional, negotiable. They say they want to be disciplined, but skip the hard things when the weather's bad. They say they want to be excellent, but surround themselves with people who joke about quitting. They say they want legacy, but live like tourists in their own lives, visiting greatness, but never moving in. Raise your standard. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. Now. Today. This moment. Decide what is no longer acceptable. Mediocrity is not some external force, it's a reflection of low standards you've silently permitted. And excellence? It's not genetic. It's not magical. It's earned by the man who enforces his standard when it would be easier not to. You have to stop waiting for circumstances to align. That's not leadership. That's laziness wrapped in logic. Leadership is building structure in the middle of chaos. It's doing what you said you would do, even when the fire's gone, even when the crowd is silent, even when your mind begs you to fold. That's what separates the strong from the soft. Not talent. Not opportunity. Standards. Let the world call you extreme. Let them call you rigid. Let them say you're too much. That's fine. Because every man who ever built something lasting had to be too much for the world that loved being average. Every legend, every legacy, every name that mattered had to become allergic to settling. Had to become immune to mediocrity. Had to draw the line, then refuse to step back from it. So what's your line? What is the version of you that exists on the other side of enough is enough? Who do you become when your life stops being built on how you feel and starts being built on what you demand? Start there. Set your standard like it's your foundation. Then guard it like it's your fortress. Don't explain it, don't justify it, don't defend it, live it, and let your life do the talking. Because when your standard becomes your signal, the right people will rise to meet it and the wrong ones will fall away in their refusal. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is the posture of a man who has decided who he is, what he values, and what he refuses to compromise, no matter the cost. Think about a lighthouse. It does not chase ships. It does not beg to be seen. It simply stands strong, still, unwavering. And because it stands, it saves. The ships adjust their course, no, the lighthouse. That must be your posture. Not performative, not reactive, rooted. Because when adversity comes, and it will, you will not rise to the occasion. That's a myth. You will fall to the level of your standard, to the system you built, to the floor you've refused to let drop. And if that floor is weak, you'll break. But if it's strong, if it's anchored in conviction, you'll endure. You'll bend, maybe, but you won't bow. And you'll come out of the storm not just intact, but stronger, sharper, wiser. That's the beauty of a standard lived daily. It builds resilience before resilience is required. It builds strength in the silence, so that when the noise comes, you are already prepared. And it builds reputation not for the crowd, but for yourself. Because when you keep showing up for the line you drew, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself. And that trust, that's where real confidence lives. Not in hype, not in hollow affirmations, but in evidence, in consistency. In the undeniable knowing that you are a man who honors his own word even when it hurts, even when it costs, even when the world offers every excuse to step back. So raise the line, and once you raise it, defend it, like a soldier guarding sacred ground, like a craftsman protecting the blueprint, like a father safeguarding his home. Your standard is not just a personal rule, it's a declaration to the world that you will not shrink to fit in, you will not dim to be liked, you will not lower your voice to avoid being misunderstood. You will live by the line you've drawn, and in time that line will elevate everything around you. Because when a man refuses to cheat the blueprint, when he lays each brick with care, when he sets his standard in stone, he becomes untouchable, not because he's perfect, but because he's principled. Not because he never falls, but because he never fails to rise. And in a world that bends for comfort, that cracks under pressure, that crumbles for convenience, such a man is rare, and rare becomes respected. But there is a cost to high standards, a price few are willing to pay, and that price is solitude. When you raise your standard, you raise your altitude. And not everyone is willing or able to breathe that air. When you say, "I will not settle," some will say, "You've changed," and they'll be right, you have. Because becoming more always means leaving behind something or someone that was never built for where you're going. But solitude is not exile, it is elevation. It is where the weak voices fade and the strong ones awaken. It is where the man becomes his own compass, not waiting for applause to feel right, not waiting for consensus to take action. In solitude, you don't lose yourself. You find the version of you that was buried beneath noise, beneath people-pleasing, beneath every moment you shrank to fit into spaces that could never hold your full fire. And yes, solitude will feel uncomfortable at first, because the world taught you that being alone is being unwanted, that quiet means failure, that if no one sees you, you must not be worth seeing. But the man who seeks validation before he seeks vision will never know peace. And the man who fills every moment with noise will never hear the whisper of destiny calling him forward. So withdraw not to escape, but to evolve, not to isolate, but to ignite. Walk alone, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because when you carry your fire alone, it grows brighter, stronger, unstoppable, and that fire once steady becomes a beacon, not the kind you beg people to see, the kind they can't ignore, because real power is never announced. It's revealed in how you walk, in how you build, in how you lead, without needing a crowd to prove you're worth following. You do not find your tribe by asking to be accepted. You attract them by becoming a man who does not need one to stand tall. That's the paradoxically, when you walk alone long enough to not need the world, does the world begin to notice. Only when you become so deeply rooted in your own direction that distractions find you boring, do the right people find you magnetic. Because people don't follow noise. They follow clarity, and clarity is born in solitude, in the quiet rooms, in the disciplined mornings, in the nights when your phone is off and your vision is on, in the decisions that no one will see, but everyone will feel once the results speak. That is where your edge is forged, not in the echo chamber of opinion, but in the crucible of personal truth. So ask yourself, have you been avoiding solitude because you fear your own voice? Have you been filling every moment with company because you're afraid of the questions silence might ask? Have you mistaken acceptance for alignment and comfort for connection? Because the man who cannot sit with himself will always be a stranger to his own greatness. Before you become social, you must become solid. Before you seek acceptance, you must build identity. Before you chase connection, you must command self-respect. Because if you walk into rooms unsure of who you are, the world will assign you a role. And you will play it, smile through it, bow under it, until one day you look in the mirror and realize the performance stole the purpose. This is why solitude is sacred. It clears the stage. It removes the masks. It strips you down to principle, to essence, to truth. And in that raw space, you begin to build, slowly, powerfully. Not a personality, a foundation, not an image, an identity. And that identity, it is forged in every choice you make when no one's watching. Every boundary you hold when no one pushes back, every standard you enforce without applause. The world will tell you to conform, to bend, to belong. But the man who belongs everywhere rarely belongs deeply anywhere. And the man who belongs to himself truly, unapologetically, he becomes the one they all remember when the crowd forgets the noise, because his silence wasn't weakness, it was war, it was work. It was the patient carving of something permanent. Let the lonely road refine you. Let it strip away what was never real. Let it teach you what strength really is, not loud, not boastful, but unbreakable. The man who walks alone long enough becomes the man who others follow not because he begs, but because he builds. And what he builds becomes irresistible. You want a tribe? Earn it. You want loyalty? Model it. You want respect? Embody it. Not out loud, not online, in private, in discipline, in decisions. And when the right people come, and they will, they won't ask to follow you. They'll simply fall into step, because light does not chase, it shines, and those meant for your fire will find warmth in it. This is why your alone time is not something to escape, it's something to treasure. You're not being punished when the path feels quiet. You're being prepared. Because every man who ever changed the world first had to walk a path where no one clapped, where no one saw the bricks, where no one celebrated the progress. Until one day the structure stood tall, and the world asked how he did it. He didn't. He became it. Through solitude, through silence, through the storm. So walk it, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. Not because it's fast, but because it's true. And as you do, the man you become will need no introduction. His discipline will speak before he does. His presence will command attention without raising a voice. His values will define the room without ever being declared. That man is built in solitude. Build him. Now that you walk alone, the next lesson reveals itself not in the sprint, but in the stride, not in how fast you move, but in how faithfully. Because pace is power. The world screams for speed. It glorifies hustle, glamorizes urgency, praises the man who burns through his days like gasoline. But speed without direction is disaster. It's motion without meaning. And the man who runs without rhythm is not chasing greatness, he's escaping himself. Slow down. Not to stop, but to sink, to align, to measure your steps with your soul, not with the world's frantic timeline. Because your mission is not a race, it's a rhythm. And when you find it, when you stop comparing your clock to theirs, when you stop trading your path for someone else's applause, something changes. You begin to move with depth, with weight, with presence. You stop drifting from milestone to milestone, chasing finish lines that don't belong to you. Instead, you anchor in your process. You build days like foundations. You wake not to impress, but to progress, one breath at a time, one brick at a time, one decision at a time. And though the world may not notice, your future will. Because pace is not for the public. It's for the man who has the patience to build something that lasts. So ask yourself, are you chasing fast, or are you chasing true? Are you counting steps or measuring depth? Because what looks like a shortcut often leads to stagnation. And what looks like delay may be the very thing setting you up for permanence. You see, there is wisdom in slowness. There is strength in steady. The marathon runner doesn't panic at mile 1 when others bolt ahead. He smiles, because he knows something they don't. He knows that endurance is built on breath control, not bursts of speed. He knows that sustainability beats excitement, that rhythm outlasts adrenaline. And so must you. Find your cadence, honor your limits, not as excuses but as structure for the long game. Because mastery is not born in chaos, it's carved in discipline. You are not falling behind when you walk with focus. You're pulling ahead in ways the world won't see until it's too late to catch up. Don't rush. Build rhythm. Create days that protect your energy instead of draining it. Fill your mornings with intention, not reaction. Choose one hard thing and do it well. Say no more often. Eliminate friction. And above all, stop chasing the timeline of men who don't carry your purpose. Their urgency is not your emergency. Their spotlight is not your direction. Their finish line is not your destination. You want to last? Then stop sprinting. Start training. Show up daily. Repeat your rhythm. Build like your life depends on it, because it does. Not just your success, but your sanity. Not just your income, but your impact. And when the world tries to seduce you with speed scrolls, sprints, shortcuts, you remain rooted. Why? Because you are no longer available for burnout. You are no longer available for broken promises and hollow progress. You are no longer available for hustle that leads to collapse. You are building permanence. You are crafting legacy. You are moving not for applause but for alignment. You are walking at the speed of purpose. And that pace? That slow, faithful, intentional pace? It is holy. It is sacred. It is unshakable. Because the man who honors his pace guards his flame. He doesn't burn out, burns through. He doesn't fade, he forges. He doesn't get tired from chasing, he gets strong from building. And in the stillness of his stride, in the silence between each step, he hears what others miss, the rhythm of greatness. That's the secret. It's not about how much you do. It's about how consistently you do what matters. You want clarity? Move, slowly, faithfully, daily. Clarity does not come in a lightning strike, it comes in motion. In repetition, in the discipline to keep going when excitement leaves the room. So picture yourself each day, laying a brick. Some days the sun is shining, some days it rains, but you lay it anyway. You don't wait for the perfect conditions. You don't demand applause. You just build, brick by brick, day by day, at your pace, in your rhythm, and without realizing it, you become the man others can't explain. The one who didn't chase attention, but attracted legacy. And when they ask how you did it, when they ask how you lasted, you won't point to hustle, you won't point to intensity, you'll point to rhythm, to routine. To the quiet moments when you walked alone at your own pace while the world sprinted past and burned out. Let them rush. You, remember who you are. Remember what you're here to build. And keep moving. Because you don't need to be first. You need to be faithful. And faithful men finish what fast men abandon. Because once you've found your rhythm, once you've silenced the noise and stopped sprinting towards someone else's spotlight, the real work begins not on the outside, but in the trenches of repetition. Because greatness is not something you declare, it's something you prove daily. And identity is not discovered, it's built. Not in flashes of inspiration, but in the boring, brutal, beautiful repetition of becoming. This is where most men turn back. They think they're not cut out for greatness because it doesn't feel exciting every day. But excitement is a liar. It promises transformation without consistency. And the truth is, you don't rise to the level of your ambition, you fall to the level of your systems, your standards, your habits. You fall to the floor you've built through repetition. The world wants to show you the moment the crown is placed, but it never shows you the mornings that crown was earned. The early wake-ups when the bed felt warm. The disciplined meals when everyone else indulged. The quiet nights spent learning, sharpening, refining, while others scrolled and celebrated. These are the invisible bricks of identity. The work no one sees, the structure no one claps for. But this is the difference. The man who finishes builds not just habits, but self-respect, and he lays it brick by brick. This is not about motivation. Motivation is a mood. It's here, it's gone. It flares like a match and dies just as fast. But repetition is firewood. Stack it enough times, strike the right spark, and it'll burn long after the feeling fades. You want to be the man who always shows up? Then stop relying on inspiration. Show up anyway. When you're tired. When you're frustrated. When it's raining. When no one notices. When no one asks. Show up because that's who you are. And every time you do, you cast another vote for that version of you. You reinforce that identity. You rewrite the story. Because repetition is identity in motion. Every time you act in alignment with the man you want to become, you're not pretending, you're practicing. You're not faking it, you're forging it. You're sending a signal to your subconscious that this is who I am now. And when that signal gets strong enough, belief changes. And when belief changes, behavior becomes effortless. This is how you shift. You don't wait for a new self-image to appear, you carve it, like a sculptor with stone, with every action, with every choice, with every refusal to negotiate with the man you used to be. But be warned, your old identity won't leave quietly. It will beg you to come back. It will whisper comfort. It will remind you of how easy it used to be. But comfort is a thief dressed as a friend. It'll sell you a couch when you came here to build a kingdom. So stay alert. Stay vigilant. Because the battle for your future is fought in the moment you decide whether or not to repeat. Whether you choose the hard path again. Whether you pick up the hammer again. Whether you lay the brick again. Even when it's boring. Especially when it's boring. Because the men who master the mundane, they become masters of everything else. It's not the extraordinary effort once in a while that changes your life. It's the ordinary effort, repeated without apology, that stacks results so high they look miraculous to those who didn't see the pattern. They'll say you're lucky. They'll say you have a gift. But what you really had was repetition. So build your life like a system, a rhythm, a pattern of purpose that doesn't depend on weather or mood or permission. Create rituals. Guard them. Don't just wake up, rise with reason. Don't just eat fuel with focus. Don't just read study with intensity. Build habits that honor the man you're becoming, and let that repetition become your resume. Picture a craftsman. He carves the same groove into the wood over and over, not because he's mindless, but because he's intentional. He knows that mastery is found in refinement, that greatness lives on the other side of repetition. He doesn't swing the chisel once and expect the sculpture to appear. He strikes again, and again, and again, until what he envisioned takes shape. So too must you, with your body, your thoughts, your words, your decisions. Repeat with clarity, repeat with honor. Repeat until the man you meet in the mirror reflects the one you've been building, not in fantasy, but in fact. And when doubt creeps in, when fatigue whispers its excuses, remember this: every act of repetition is a rebellion against the past, a war cry against the man you used to be. A declaration that you're not here to dabble, you're here to dominate. You're not flirting with greatness, you're marrying it. You're not daydreaming, you're designing. That's what repetition does. It makes transformation inevitable, because when your feet keep moving, your life must follow. When your voice keeps speaking truth, your soul must align. When your hands keep building, your world cannot stay the same. So don't ask for proof, be the proof. Don't ask for the path to be easier, become stronger. Don't ask how long it will take, decide, it doesn't matter. Because the man who builds with repetition doesn't fear delay. He doesn't fear silence. He doesn't fear failure. He only fears stopping. He knows the secret most never learned, that every day is a vote. Every habit is a hammer. Every routine is prophecy. And when those bricks stack high enough, when those acts of integrity pile up enough times, a fortress rises. A man emerges. Not just any man, the man who was promised in the silence, in the fire, in the daily act of showing up. You want to become him? Then pick up your brick and build again. Because no matter how strong your habits, how steady your rhythm, or how clear your identity becomes, if your environment is toxic, your roots will rot. It's not enough to build the right routines. You have to build them in the right soil. The seed is only as powerful as the ground it's planted in, and if the soil is poisoned, nothing legendary grows. Too many men ignore this truth. They believe grit alone can overcome gravity, that willpower can outrun sabotage. But even the strongest oak will crumble if its roots are soaked in acid. Your environment is not neutral. It is shaping you always. It is either pulling you higher or dragging you down. There is no in-between. Your environment is not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's the energy of the people around you, it's the tone of their conversations, the vision behind their words, the expectations they place on your life. It's the books on your shelf, the tabs open on your browser, the voices in your ear, the choices you make when no one is watching but everyone is influencing. So audit it, ruthlessly. Ask yourself, what feeds me? What depletes me? What relationships sharpen me? What circles stunt me? Which rooms reflect my future? Which rooms chain me to my past? Because the man who fails to guard his environment forfeits control of his direction. He may have vision, he may have passion, but if his surroundings glorify distraction and belittle discipline, he will drown. Slowly, quietly, And worst of all, he won't even know why. You are not obligated to keep toxic friendships just because they feel familiar. You are not required to stay loyal to rooms that no longer fit your mission. You are not being harsh by creating boundaries. You are being wise. You are being strategic. You are protecting your momentum. Think of it like this. A man training in a muddy field spends half his energy just trying to stay upright. But place that same man on solid ground and he flies. He breaks records. He builds legacy. The problem was never his effort. It was the soil. So clean your soil. Rebuild your space. Organize your surroundings with discipline in mind. Declutter your room. Clear your desk. Build an atmosphere that reminds you every day of who you're becoming. Wake up and see order, not chaos. Walk through your space and feel purpose and not pressure. Because your environment doesn't just reflect you, it amplifies you. If your surroundings are soaked in mediocrity, your actions will begin to mirror that mediocrity, no matter how strong your intentions were when you started. But if your environment is built like a launch pad, clean, focused, prepared, your energy doubles, your clarity sharpens, your vision stretches its arms and begins to run. Guard your mornings like sacred ground. That first hour isn't casual, it's everything. Don't hand it over to distractions. Don't surrender it to the world's demands. Begin it with intention, with fire, with control. Your morning is the match that lights the rest of the day. Strike it well. Then look beyond the morning. Look at the people. Are they pushing you or pacifying you? Are they building with you or just burning your time? Are they mirrors of your courage or echoes of your fear? This is not about elitism. It's about elevation. If you want to grow, you must grow with those who demand your excellence, not your excuses. If you want to rise, you must stop apologizing for your standards, because when you normalize dysfunction in your circle, it seeps into your structure. And the life you're building brick by discipline brick begins to wobble. This is why lions don't run with sheep. They don't beg to be understood. They don't shrink their roar to comfort the herd. They walk with strength. They protect their territory. They choose solitude over dilution. So must you. Your mission is too vital to keep sacrificing it to environments that drain your fire. It's not selfish to protect your energy. It's stewardship. It's leadership. It's the responsibility of a man who knows that destiny is delicate and distractions are deadly. So clean house. Raise the standard not just for yourself, but for everything around you. Let your space speak of your discipline. Let your schedule reflect your values. Let the people close to you be there not by default, but by design. Because you don't rise in spite of your environment, you rise with it. Craft it wisely. Build an atmosphere where your best self is not just welcome, but expected. Where greatness is not just possible, but normal. Where mediocrity cannot survive. Because the man who controls his environment controls his future. And the man who protects his future walks lighter, moves stronger, builds faster. That man becomes unstoppable. And still, even in the perfect rhythm, even with high standards, strong identity, and a pure environment, you will fall. Because failure doesn't skip the focused, it doesn't avoid the disciplined, it visits everyone. It does not ask permission, it does not send a warning. But here is the truth most never grasp. Failure is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It shows you who you are when the applause stops. It reveals your cracks. And if you're brave enough to look again, it reveals your next breakthrough. But most won't. Most confuse falling with finality. They think, I failed, so they say, I must be a failure. And that lie, that quiet, lethal lie, it hijacks potential. It paralyzes vision. It turns temporary loss into permanent identity. That's how dreams die not in loud collapse, but in quiet self-abandonment. But not you. You will not define yourself by the stumble. You will define yourself by the step that comes after it. Because every man who ever built anything worth remembering was knocked down brutally, painfully, publicly. But they rose, not with excuses, not with shame, but with clarity, with adaptation, with fire. The man who becomes unstoppable is not the man who avoids defeat. It is the man who masters it, who studies it, who dissects every misstep not with judgment but with strategy. He does not spiral, he sharpens. He does not collapse, he recalibrates. He does not drown in emotion, he anchors in decision. Picture a chess player. He loses a major piece. It hurts. It's embarrassing. But he doesn't flip the board. He leans in. He watches. He repositions. He sacrifices short-term pride for long-term dominance. That's how the game is won. Not by always being ahead, but by knowing how to come back when you're not. So when failure knocks and it will, you don't run. You open the door. You let it speak. You listen. And then you reply with action. You say, "Thank you for the lesson. I'll build with it." Because failure is not a stop sign, it's a blueprint, but only if you're willing to read it twice, once with emotion and once with purpose. Ask better questions. Don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What now?" Don't ask, "What will they think?" Ask, "What must I fix?" Because every setback contains sacred data, data about your habits, your patterns, your blind spots, and if you ignore it, the lesson will return, louder, sharper, until you are forced to grow or forced to quit. So wear your scars, not as shame, but as signal. Each one says, "I showed up, I tried, I learned, I'm still here," and that alone, that puts you ahead of 1,000 men who never left the sideline. You are not defined by how you fall, you are defined by how you rise, what you carry back into the fight, what you refuse to let go of, what you decide not to repeat. And when you return not bitter but better, you become something no failure can break. Because pain is not proof you're broken, it's proof you're building. Let the friction forge you. Let the silence stretch you. Let the disappointment drive you. And understand this, what looks like delay is often divine preparation. What looks like rejection is often redirection. What looks like the end is often the edge of your next level. The storm is not your sentence. It is your setup for resilience, for wisdom, for perspective. But you only get that if you stay in the fight, not half-hearted, not apologetically, with both feet, with your jaw clenched, with your back straight, with your soul screaming, "This will not be the end of me." And if you do that, if you stay in the heat long enough, something begins to harden not your heart, but your resolve, not your vision, but your edge. And slowly, the very thing that tried to break you becomes the reason you can't be broken. Failure is not a curse. It is a tool. Use it, not to justify quitting, but to build conviction. Use it not to retreat, but to reroute. Use it to see clearer, to think sharper, to move stronger. Because the man who uses his losses becomes lethal. He becomes the one who surprises them all, who doesn't collapse under pressure, who doesn't fold when things go sideways, who doesn't break because he already bent and came back harder. Let them underestimate you. Let them call you done. Let them forget your name. But you remember who you are, and you move anyway. That's the comeback story they never see coming. Because it wasn't built in headlines, it wasn't built in hype, it was built in the quiet decision to not stay down, in the small choices no one saw, in the silent hours when you showed up anyway. So rise again, with scars on your hands and steel in your spine. Let your loss become your leverage. Let your stumble become your strategy. Let your breakdown become your blueprint. Because failure isn't final unless you make it final. And you're not done. You're just getting started. And now you risen not just for you, but for something greater. Because once you've walked through failure and returned with fire, you begin to see it clearly. Your life is not just about this moment. It's about the echo, the imprint, the weight of your name in rooms you'll never enter. This is the quiet power of legacy. And legacy is not built later. It is built now, in the ordinary, in the invisible, in the daily decisions that feel small but never are. You don't leave a legacy by talking about it. You build it by living like it's already happening. Every choice you make is casting a shadow into the future. Every word you speak is setting a tone for someone who's listening, even if that someone is a future version of you. Because legacy isn't about being famous. It's about being remembered by the right people, by the ones who looked up to you when you didn't even notice, by your children, your team, your circle. Legacy is what they whisper about you after you're gone. It's the standard you enforce when no one else does. It's the example you set when everyone else settles. So ask yourself, what are you building with your days? When you hit snooze again, what message does that send? When you keep your promise, even though no one's checking, what foundation does that lay? When you say no to ease, to compromise, to what insults your future, what story does that write? Because the future doesn't reward your intentions. It rewards your integrity, the kind that shows up when it's hard, the kind that refuses to die in obscurity, the kind that looks boring to the world but looks like leadership to the people who matter most. And it happens in silence. That's what most people never understand. Legacy is not loud. It doesn't arrive with applause. It doesn't scream for attention. It's built in the way you walk, the way you listen, the way you stand firm when others bend. It's in the way you show up every morning to lay one more brick of it when you're tired, even when you're doubting, even when the results haven't shown yet. But that's the key. Results don't come before legacy. Legacy brings the results. Because when you build your life like a message, life echoes it back to you with rewards that last. Not quick hits of praise, but deep roots of respect. Not fleeting attention, but timeless admiration. So be relentless. Not in the grand gesture, but in the quiet consistency. That's where legacy lives. It lives in the early morning run when your body begs to sleep, in the extra rep when you already feel done, in the handwritten note to your child, in the hard conversation you didn't avoid, in the boundaries you held, in the standard you set, in the way you loved when it was difficult. That's what will remain. One day your voice will fade, but your choices, they won't. Your name will be spoken either with reverence or regret, and that depends not on how much you accomplished, but on how much you aligned. Not on how high you reached, but on how true you stood. So build as if every day matters, because it does. Speak truth even when silence feels safer. Lead when no one follows. Forgive when your ego screams for revenge. Do the work even when there's no applause. Because every nail, every brick, every breath becomes the architecture of the legacy you're constructing. Think of the builder, quiet, focused, ignored. No crowds gather to praise his framework. No headlines celebrate his foundation. But he knows. He knows every inch counts. Every beam matters. Every line of symmetry reflects his values, and one day when the structure rises and awe fills the room, he won't be surprised. Because he didn't stumble into greatness. He built it, stone by stone, sacrifice by sacrifice, choice by choice. And so must you. You want your name to mean something? Then give your days meaning. Stop looking for the one big breakthrough. Build 1,000 silent victories instead. Let your mornings be your statement. Let your habits be your mission. Let your discipline become your declaration. Because there are men who talk about legacy and there are men who live it. The difference is what they do when no one's watching. And that choice is yours. Right now. Today. So ask yourself again, what will your name mean when you're gone? Will it command respect or will it be forgotten? Will it stand tall in the hearts of those you serve, or will it vanish into convenience? Will it echo in the character of your children, in the strength of your friends, in the foundation of every soul you touched? Or will it dissolve because you never showed up fully enough to leave a mark? This is not a warning. It's an invitation to be remembered not because you were loud, but because you were loyal. Not because you chased spotlight, but because you carried substance. Not because you won quickly, but because you endured with honor. Your life is the blueprint. Your daily discipline is the bricks. Your words are the nails. Your integrity is the mortar. Keep building. Let your legacy rise. And now we arrive at the line, the one you draw, the one you defend, the one that defines everything. Because it doesn't matter how loud your goals are if your standards whisper. You can speak of dreams. You can post intentions. But if your standards are soft, your life will be too, because life will never rise higher than the floor you're willing to stand on, and that floor is self-respect. This is where everything begins. This is where men are separated from the noise, not in public, not in performance, but in the silence of what they accept behind closed doors. It's in the boundaries you enforce without explanation. It's in the standard you defend without apology. It's in the way you look in the mirror and ask not, what do I want, but what will I no longer tolerate? Because what you tolerate becomes your truth. Every time you allow disrespect, delay, disorder, every time you nod at mediocrity, you sign off on it. You co-sign your own diminishment. And you teach the world how to treat you not with your words, but with your tolerances. So what are yours? What do you let slide? Where do you compromise? What line keeps moving just a little lower each time it's tested? Because a man without a standard becomes a puppet to pressure. He bends to ease. He conforms to crowds. He lowers himself to match noise instead of lifting his world to match his vision. But not you. You build a standard like a wall, a fortress. You set it not for the world, but for yourself. You don't announce it. You don't need to scream it. You just live it, quietly, steadily, relentlessly. And every time you enforce it, you reinforce who you are, not situationally, but structurally. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's not pride, it's posture. Because the man who sets a line and keeps it, even when it's costly, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one is watching, that man becomes unshakable. That man builds presence. He becomes known not just for what he does, but for what he doesn't allow. This is the posture of kings. They don't demand respect, they embody it. They don't chase validation, they command gravity. They don't ask the world to treat them better, they treat themselves with such clarity that the world has no choice but to rise or retreat. So ask yourself again, what are you enforcing? Not in public, but in your private, personal, unfiltered life. What do your habits say about what you believe you deserve? What do your mornings reflect? What do your friendships echo? What does your schedule scream? Because everything you allow is a vote, and every vote shapes your identity. If you keep voting for delay, you become delay. If you keep voting for excuses, you become average. If you keep voting for boundaries, you become unbreakable. And here's the hard truth. You do not get the life you want. You get the life you enforce. So enforce it. Not by shouting, not by force, but by clarity. Be the lighthouse, not the ship. Let your presence declare, this is the line. This is who I am. This is what I expect not from the world, but from myself. And when the storm comes, and it will, you don't move. You don't negotiate. You don't flinch. You hold the line. Because the tide will rise, the pressure will press, the noise will try to convince you to soften. But the man who bends every time he's tested builds nothing. The man who holds builds a legacy. So hold. When it hurts, when it's hard, when it's lonely, when you're misunderstood. Hold. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's correct. Hold because your future deserves better than your excuses. Hold because your family needs a man who doesn't fold. Hold because your destiny is waiting for someone with the backbone to carry it. You've seen what happens when you compromise. You've tasted the regret of broken boundaries. You've lived the weight of saying yes to what dishonored your calling. No more. Now you rise. Now you lead. Now you live like every step is part of something sacred. Because it is. Your standard is your signal. It's how the world reads your values. It's how your future recognizes you. It's how your mission knows you're ready. Raise it. Defend it. Embody it. Not because it's trendy, but because it's true. Your time is valuable, but your energy, that's everything. Because time without energy is empty. A day with no fire is just a shell. An hour without focus is a leak. And most men aren't failing because they lack vision. They're failing because they're leaking power. Every distraction, every toxic voice, every worthless habit is a slow, quiet thief draining the very fuel you need to move your life forward. You think you're tired because you're busy. But busyness is not. Exhaustion, misalignment is. Mismanaged focus is. Leaking your attention to things that don't matter is. You cannot build anything of substance when you're constantly interrupted by other people's demands, by your own notifications, by conversations that go nowhere, and thoughts that rob your momentum. So protect it. Protect your focus like a man under siege. Guard your attention like treasure, because it is. It's the most powerful weapon you have and the most targeted. The world will fight for it. Algorithms will beg for it. Shallow relationships will drain it. But you must decide. Does this serve the man I'm becoming? Does this fuel the mission or fracture it? Because every yes is a no to something else. Every time you say yes to gossip, you say no to clarity. Every time you say yes to convenience, you say no to excellence. Every time you say yes to comparison, you say no to confidence. This is the war, and your peace, your progress, depends on your ability to win it. So start auditing everything. What gets your energy? What gets your attention? What gets your emotion? Is it intentional or is it reactive? Are you leading your focus or is it being dragged behind every ping, every post, every pointless pursuit? Are you choosing your inputs or just absorbing whatever's loudest? This is the level few reach, not because they can't, but because they won't slow down long enough to ask. But you must. Because when you master your energy, everything else follows. Your habits solidify. Your mood stabilizes. Your goals crystallize. Because now, you're not scattering your fire, you're channeling it. Your energy becomes your force field. Your attention becomes your aim. You stop chasing and start attracting. Because focused energy is magnetic. It moves people. It draws opportunity. It silences doubt. But most importantly, it brings you back to yourself. You become the man who doesn't chase validation, he channels truth. You become the man who doesn't wait for the world to calm down, he creates calm inside himself. You become the man who doesn't need 100 options, she masters the few that matter. This is where power lives. Not in speed, but in stillness. Not in multitasking, but in mastery. Not in doing more, but in doing less with more depth, more presence, more fire. So create rituals that renew you. Feed your mind before the world poisons it. Move your body before stagnation steals your strength. Speak truth to yourself before lies echo louder. This isn't self-indulgence, it's self-protection, and your mission depends on it. Think of your energy like a fire in the forest. That fire warms you, it lights your path, it signals to others that life is here. But if you neglect it, if you feed it trash, if you let the wind steal its flame, it dies. And with it, your direction, your drive, your identity. You must tend to that fire, daily, deliberately, with boundaries, with intention, with the discipline to say no, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aligned. Not because you hate others, but because you love the version of you that you're becoming. And here's the secret. Energy is renewable, but only if you steward it, only if you spend it wisely, only if you stop giving your strength to situations and people who haven't earned it. You do not owe your attention to every voice. You do not owe your presence to every party. You owe your best to your calling. So simplify. Simplify your inputs. Simplify your calendar. Simplify your expectations. Because the man who simplifies becomes the man who multiplies. He multiplies results. He multiplies impact. He multiplies legacy. Not because he's doing more, but because he's doing the right things and he's doing them fully. Picture him, calm in the storm, still in the chaos, sharp when others are scattered. That man doesn't happen by accident. He's built on focused choice at a time. One protected hour, one sacred morning, one refusal to be pulled into the noise. You want to become him? Then audit your life like your future depends on it, because it does. Cut the clutter. Silence the static. Aim your energy like a weapon and use it only when it serves your mission. And if you do that long enough, with enough clarity, enough intention, you will begin to feel it momentum. Not the kind that flashes once and fades. The kind that builds, that compounds. That doesn't need external validation to stay strong. Because now your energy is not just protected, it's powerful. And the world, it won't understand it, but it will feel it. And it will move. Because nothing can stop a man who masters where his energy flows. And now you stand at the edge. Not just of this moment, but of everything you were born to build. Look behind you not with regret, but with reverence. See the bricks, laid in silence. See the storms, weathered with resolve. See the failures, rewritten as fuel. See the line you drew, and held, and defended. This is who you are. A man forged in focus, trained in solitude, sharpened by discipline, anchored in standard, not by accident, not by luck. but by the quiet power of daily decisions that no one applauded but heaven recorded. You didn't need the world to see it. You just needed to be it. Because true greatness doesn't ask for permission, it declares presence. It doesn't scream to be noticed, it simply stands, rooted, unshaken. Like a mountain that was once a single grain of conviction, pressed, compacted, refined into something permanent. And so here you are, the man who stopped chasing and started building, who stopped performing and started preparing, who stopped apologizing and started aligning. You didn't rise with fanfare, you rose with structure. You rose because you stopped outsourcing your life to circumstances, and you took the pen back. That pen, it never belonged to them. It was always yours. And now you write the rest not from fear, but from clarity, not from hope, but from habit, not with borrowed dreams, but with a blueprint built brick by brick in your bones. Because now you know, you are the builder. You are the standard. You are the gatekeeper. You are the captain. You are the man who wakes before the excuses, who trains before the applause, who protects his energy like sacred ground, who turns away from shallow pleasure and chooses deep purpose, not because it's easy, but because it's real. And that's the difference. Many talk, few build. Many start, few endure. Many declare, few prove. But you kept showing up when it hurt, when it was quiet, when it was lonely, when it was thankless. And that's where you found your power, not in intensity, but in consistency, not in speed, but in rhythm, not in motivation, but in mission. You walked when others waited. You struck when others stalled. You grew when others coasted. Because your habits didn't follow your feelings. Your actions didn't beg for approval. You didn't dance for likes. You didn't chase trends. You chased truth. You chased depth. You chased the man you were meant to be. And with every decision, every standard, every boundary, you became him. Let that be your legacy. Not a title, not a trophy, but a presence. A presence so disciplined, so clear, so committed that even in your absence, your life still speaks. That when you walk into a room, people feel it because you've become what most only pretend to be. A man of principle. A man of purpose. A man of peace, not because the world is quiet, but because his soul is loud with conviction. You didn't build your life on sand. You built it on stone. And now that structure stands tall not because of what others see, but because of what you no longer needed them to see. You stopped negotiating with your weakness. You stopped arguing with your potential. You stopped playing small so others would feel tall. And instead you rose, not as a reaction, but as a decision. Because you finally believed the truth. You owe you. Not your past. Not your pain. Not your fear. You owe your future. The one that depends on your fire. The one that's waiting at the finish line not for a man who sprinted in bursts, but for the one who kept laying bricks long after the emotion faded. And now, that man is you. You are no longer watching greatness. You are living it. You are no longer dreaming of legacy. You are building it. You are no longer hoping someone else will lead. You are leading, quietly, boldly, faithfully, because the standard is high, the path is narrow, the climb is steep, but the view is eternal. So keep rising, keep striking, keep walking, not until it's easy, not until it's perfect, but until it's done. This is your time. This is your story. And when the world wonders how you did it, let your habits answer. When the world asks why you rose, let your standard reply. When the world forgets your name, let your impact remind them. Because men like you, they don't fade. They forge. And they finish.